The Texas House of Representatives has adjourned until Friday. For the second day in a row, the body failed to reach a quorum. This as dozens of Democratic lawmakers have fled the state to delay a vote on a redrawn congressional map that could give Republicans 5 more seats ahead of the 2026 midterms.
That fight having ripple effects across the country. Here in California, Governor Newsom looking to counter Texas, saying he'll push for a special election to redraw California's map, giving Democrats at least 5 new seats in a state where 43 of the 52 seats already go blue. Today, the office of the California Secretary of State confirmed that if the legislature wants a special election November 4th, they'll need to declare it by August 22nd. They're now on recess until the 18th.
And in Washington, California Republican Congressman Kevin Kiley introduced legislation today to prevent all mid-decade redistricting efforts. And I spoke with Congressman Kiley earlier today. Here's that conversation. Start with your take on the fight unfolding in Texas, not just the redrawn map, but the fact that we're now talking about arrest warrants for fleeing Democratic lawmakers.
Yeah, I think people are looking at this saying, this is really not the way the political process is supposed to work. And I think it does just underscore the need to try to restore some sanity to this whole redistricting process. But, naturally, being a representative from California, I am first and foremost concerned about this threat to democracy in our own state, where we have this attempt now afoot to abolish the Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission that was established by voters. Voters in California voted overwhelmingly, saying that we don't think politicians should be the ones that are drawing their own district lines, that's an inherent conflict of interest, because then they're going to go and run in those districts. Instead, it should be a non-political process. And so they set up a citizens commission comprised of ordinary people representing all parties who aren't even allowed to run for office, who aren't allowed to consider partisan factors in drawing district lines, and instead get feedback from communities all across the state and draw districts that make sense based upon keeping communities together and factors like that. So the fact that there is now a political partisan attempt to blow all of that up, to go back to the old way of doing things, and to do it to throw out the existing map at a time when we aren't even supposed to be drawing district lines, I think it's a very dangerous thing. It's why groups like the League of Women Voters in California and Common Cause have come out against this plan.
So President Trump weighing in today, saying Republicans are entitled to those 5 seats in Texas, adding that states like California, Illinois, and Massachusetts already heavily gerrymandered. Meanwhile, some Democratic lawmakers call efforts to redistrict, quote, blatant racism. What is your response to the merits of both arguments?
Well, it certainly is true that there are states like Illinois, for example, that are very gerrymandered, and they're much more imbalanced than, let's say, a state like Texas is. And then there's also the fact that the 2020 census, there was the Census Bureau itself came out and said that there was miscounting because of COVID that made that made extra seats be given to the Democrat Party. And then there's also this issue where folks who are in the country illegally are actually counted in the apportionment process, so that the states that have more illegal immigrants get more seats as well. So I think the president was probably looking at all of those factors when he's kind of highlighting the systemic inequities that exist, and is thinking about this in terms of restoring a balance of the equities. But I think that perhaps the president was not fully advised of what the full picture here would be, the potential to have California or New York, our congressional delegations upended. I don't think that that's what he wants. And at the end of the day, having a redistricting war break out across the country probably is not in anyone's interest. It's a huge distraction from the interests of the issues that really matter.
Your legislation, which aims to nullify mid-decade redistricting, explain and just expand on what exactly you're proposing.
Yeah, so the way that this is ordinarily done is that every 10 years, we redraw district lines. And that's because every 10 years we have the census. So you need to redraw the lines to make sure that every district has the same number of people. But you're not supposed to just sort of, start redrawing lines, let's say in 2025, in the middle of the decade, which is what Gavin Newsom is proposing to do. So the bill is very simple. It just says that after the census, you should reapportion, or you should redraw your district lines to make sure all the districts are equal. But we shouldn't have this sort of enormous instability of constantly shuffling lines. I mean, imagine if this thing continues and state after state after state decides to redraw their lines, and maybe they'll start doing them in the next 2 years. And so how do you at that point have any ability of representatives to build relationships with their constituents, with the communities that they represent? I've talked to people on both sides of the aisle who, regardless of whether their party stands to benefit or lose in their particular state, they don't like the idea of this mid-decade redistricting because they're going to lose big parts of their district where they've gotten to know the people, they've gotten to know the issues, and then all of a sudden those communities are just tossed out of their district.
So redistricting could mean control of the House. We're talking about 5 seats in Texas, and it could mean the end of certain lawmakers' careers, for example. And given those stakes, do you think that that you actually have the votes in Congress for this legislation to pass?
I think so, and I'm going to do everything I possibly can to get it on the floor and to get it passed. And I think that at the end of the day, number one, even whatever the sort of net political consequences might be, people don't like having their districts just completely upended, certainly not in the middle of the decade. And we're also seeing that it's going to be, this continued counter reaction. So, I think ultimately, what we ultimately need to go is to a system where gerrymandering just doesn't exist anymore. And I think that that's kind of a longer term project. So by the time of the next 2030 census, perhaps we can come to some sort of bipartisan agreement around that issue. I think one opportunity is to perhaps reach a deal where we say no more gerrymandering, and then also we require voter ID in elections. Those are both propositions that enjoy broad support from the public, but that are sort of different priorities of the two parties. So I think there's an opportunity to reach an agreement there.
Congressman, California currently has 9 Republican representatives out of 52. The new map could eliminate at least 5 of those seats, including yours. Are you worried that you could be drawn out of a job?
No, I'm not super worried about my own district. I won re-election last year by 46,000 votes. I actually have gotten the most votes for a Republican candidate in our state's history. And that's because my support comes from Democrats, Republicans, and independents. I've worked on issues that are of concern to all voters, whether it's alleviating traffic in my area or protecting Lake Tahoe, which I represent. So there's only really so much they can do to me. What I'm concerned about is democracy in our state. And we have this full-fledged attack now on democracy in California in a way that's going to be extremely unhealthy for representative government and is going to, I think, serve to erode trust among Californians. And I think that, to your point about the partisan breakdown, the benefit of the Redistricting Commission is that it is by law nonpartisan. They're not allowed to consider what the political implications are of moving a line this way or that way when they do their redistricting once every 10 years. Whereas what's being proposed now is to have redistricting done in a way that is entirely driven by partisanship, and to do so right now in the middle of the decade, throwing out the work of the independent commission. So I think that it is, again, a very dangerous thing, a very troubling thing, a very anti-democratic thing, and that's why I introduced this legislation to try to bring it to try to stop it from going forward.
Congressman Kevin Kiley, thank you so much for joining us here on the KTLA 5 News at 7. We appreciate your time and your insight, and good luck going forward.
I appreciate that. Thanks so much.